Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Alpine Odyssey, where we get to kind of work on some miscellaneous pieces that were missing from the previous episode. I got a lot of great feedback for the parking lot so far, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying this kind of detour that we have to take before actually constructing and working on the park proper. And what we're doing is I'm using a lot of the gray boxing technique that I kind of covered in my tutorial series to start thinking of the staircase access point for the parking garage. That's something that I overlooked on the last episode. I didn't really establish how the people left the building after parking their car, and a lot of you did point that out. So, thank you for that. That feedback is necessary to try and make this one of the best parks that I've ever made in this game. So, what we got here is a simple, I think it's an 8 meter by a 6 meters, or maybe 4. And it is just an attachment that we're going to make for the garage parts. And we just have to create one section here, as long as we do the tiling correct. And we will be able to make as tall or as short of a staircase as possible, and it does wrap around every 4 meters in height, just like the base garage will. And the staircases themselves, this is a really tight, narrow space, so we're using a lot of the 2-meter wooden kind of planks here to try and get the base shape correct, and then we'll be filling in some of the gaps as well, adding some detail pieces onto here so that it can look as good as possible. You want to take your time when you are making tile sets like this, and we're also going to be carrying a lot of the coloration and theme from the parking garage over into this one. We're going to be using the bricks, doing some siding work, and even some of the white kind of stonework here for the pillars, so they can stand out and look a little bit more unique on there. Another nice addition to have this staircase attached to the side of our building is that it's one of those extra little layering details that makes the building shape less boxy and have an extra layer on there. And that's something also that I wanted to cover during the basic building tutorial series as well back a few weeks ago was we need to make these things detailed and layered in a somewhat realistic but also an interesting fashion every time. And making tile sets can always speed up that process. So that's what I encourage you guys to do. And copy and paste, of course, will be our friend going forward. We'll have some red kind of square elements kind of break up and mark out where each floor kind of begins and ends. That'll help me line up the tile sets a little bit better. This one's going to be about 4 stories tall so that it can reach the roof there. Now, I know some of you even wanted an elevator shaft down, say, the center or the edge. There's not really much room for me to do that, especially since a lot of these parking spots are already established. So it seems like the staircase is kind of the best workaround solution that we have right now. But it might be something we look into adding later as a finishing detail piece. So the top is just going to be a flat metal roof. We're going to also add an air conditioning unit or ventilation system, just so maybe the carbon emissions can be vented out and keep the space nice and open for the public. Now that's also another good reason to have these very open walls throughout the whole structure. And here we're copying pasting the staircase over, but I'm trying to line up the floor joists with the actual floor of this structure first, and then we're just going to copy and paste it downwards from there, and that way everything lines up. I also wanted to align this staircase with the actual kind of yellow warning markers there so that it looks a little bit more official like that. There's still plenty of painting, like road painting, signs, symbols to do. I'm trying to do some of that off camera so that we're not kind of spending a lot of that in the episode where you guys get to see me do a lot of these things. In fact, all of these parking grids were placed off camera. You can see them in the back there. on the kind of black asphalt kind of structure that we have going around, and we'll be working on detailing out a lot of the base details that are needed for the parking lot to function, and then also to fill in a lot of the dead space kind of surrounding the area. It's kind of the first pass of this, though. There'll probably be 1 to 2 more passes, and then this whole section will be complete. We'll start adding more vehicles. This weekend, we're going to do another live stream to make more vehicle variants. You can see them kind of in the background there, but last weekend I did do a stream. You guys were giving me some vehicles that you wanted to see for our parking lot and assisting me with color. Also building these because they were pretty hard to do. They're small. The pieces that you can use are very limited, and the way you have to use them are a little bit ingenious. So like the wheels of a lot of these cars are made up of candy and some piping and icing to get the rims, and it just all kind of fits together rather nice. The top of the spiral on the parking garage, I wanted to do something a little bit modern, and that's why we have this kind of semi-helix going up the top there with some white, very crisp kind of support structures, and also the windows there to just give it some color variant and make it read from a distance. We're also going to be putting lights throughout the whole interior of these parking garage. That way at nighttime, people can see where they are going. We'll also be able to activate some headlights on these cars. So at nighttime, if we have any on the road, they will turn on at night and look a little bit more safe for the guests. At this point, we're also going to be working on some lampposts for the general parking, which is out there. I wanted to have some flag elements. It's not something that I've really messed with a lot in quite a while, probably not since the Renaissance Fair Park. And there's a lot of these new flags, and they are fairly large, and so I figured we can use these as the markers for the different parking areas. We'll color them, kind of color code them, so the guests can find their spot a little bit easier, and eventually all these lights at night will look really good. Now, I know the black top is a little shiny. It's the sci-fi pathway there, and it is going to reflect a lot of this light at night and actually might look a little darker than it would otherwise. So there's not much I can do about that because I really want this black asphalt, and we will be just slowly working on adding details to these lampposts. I did a first pass just to try and see if I was going to like the spacing of these things. Realized the poles themselves were a little plain, so we're just attaching these little flags on them right now so that they are a little bit more interesting to look at than just street lamps kind of tucked around everywhere. The new kind of fantasy stone base is great for these type of things. It would normally be painted, but there's really not much I can do in terms of that, customizing the colors on this block. Sadly, I think they're still working on getting all the custom colors into the game. They're just going to be slowly adding these over time as they have time to do so. There's a whole bunch of sirens outside. That's always fun to record when that's happening. We got plenty of parking space out here, and I know a lot of you might think that there's not enough parking for the whole park guest limit, but that's why we also have the kind of 2-lane highway going underground there. That in theory would lead to additional parking off somewhere else and would provide a little bit of a scapegoat to allow me to keep this a relatively small section in the park for time reasons. We are also going to be working on some new lines and details along here just to try and clean up some of the edges in the grid work and to assist the drivers with their parking experience. We're going to have some interesting shaped parking spots, and we need definitely to mark out some areas where people won't try to double park, and that's what we're doing here with these nice hashed out about 60-degree angled lines, and we'll color them kind of more of a yellow color. eventually, just so they stand out a little bit, but we're just keeping it white right now so that it's easier to copy and paste them around, because I'm able to copy and paste off the parking grids themselves at this point, and then we can use copy and paste to make an additional triangle. So as you progress and build your tile set over time, really adding these details isn't too worrisome. It just becomes more of a listen to music, chill, add some details, and then you are basically done after a given amount of time. The time thing is just not one of those things that you can avoid too often. I also want to make some custom flower beds, tree beds, kind of hedge rows for the parking areas, and we want to fill these in rather dense and make these look pretty overgrown and well kind of manicured with the pine trees there. We're also going to end up adding plenty of natural elements not inside of these planters, but that's going to be kind of on the third pass of details as well. Gonna color some of these elements yellow so they stand out from afar, and they look a little bit different than the white arrows, and these will signal that you need to kind of slow down in this area. We also want to get the arrows pointing in the right direction so the flow of traffic can make sense. Everything's kind of just gonna go in a clockwise or counterclockwise manner, kind of depending on which way it's oriented in the parking lot itself. And at this point, you can really see just the overall shape slowly being carved out and revealed. And this is kind of the point where you get excited, because you're getting close to completing an area. It's all coming together, but there's just still a whole bunch of things on your list that you need to do. We're also going to be making some guardrails for the highway system, and surprisingly, the railroad kind of metal tracks there made a surprisingly accurate guardrail, and I can make a little tile set for this and paste that along the road relatively quickly. We can use the grid system to get the long straightaways established really quick. We can then go ahead, rotate it about 15 degrees, expand it, rotate it again, and then get the end piece here so that it kind of sinks into the ground and just makes it look all nice there at the end. We can do the same on the other side just as quick, and we're going to be using these guardrails pretty much throughout the whole park along a lot of these main roads, and it'll hopefully look pretty cool on the highway system. And when the go-kart track actually gets laid, they'll be using that as well. Save some elements as blueprints so you can kind of use them a lot quicker. And that's about it for this episode. It's a lot of detailing. We're just detailing at this point, and that's what it's going to be like for the next little while. So we'll take a look at real time, show you guys some cool areas, and see what you guys think. Also, there's a vehicle pack on the Steam Workshop you can check out. Alright, so here we are, real time, taking a look at the parking lot. We're going to go over some future plans, troubleshoot some ideas with you guys. You guys can leave me feedback down below in the comments, because this is a group effort to try and make this all come together. And when I upload this at the end, hopefully you guys get to enjoy it. I might even just upload a version with just the parking lot done first, and then you guys will be able to use this as kind of an entrance into your own park and incorporate it in a different way than maybe even I am doing. So let me know if you want to do that, essentially. But what we got here, we got a lot of the base kind of grid system laid out here. A lot of the lamp posts are set up, and this is supposed to look repetitive and kind of plain, to be honest. You know, parking lots are just these wide open spaces. They don't really usually have much detail except for maybe along leading edge. Sometimes there might be a spot of detail here in the middle, which is what we're trying to incorporate in between each parking zone. We have parking zone red, we have parking zone blue, we have parking zone green, and then orange is the actual parking garage itself. This is kind of like the long-term parking, you could say. I do want to add some more of these flags around just so they are a little bit more recognizable from a distance, because right now they're just at the entrances of each section, which work, but just some more reference from afar I think would be beneficial for the overall feel of the park. We got plenty of these cool flower beds, which I just made a simple blueprint of. Combining the grass and the purple bush creates a pretty neat texture. I do like the color of this. They can combine very nicely. We got some more thick greenery elements near the edge of the frame itself so that it feels a little bit more contained. We also have, oh wow, that road is really shiny. We got the arrows all laid out, all these planters, and in the dead space, say like in here, even here, and anywhere else that looks a little too empty, don't worry, we'll be going in and adding some additional trees and plant life in those areas. But I wanted to get the more man-made manicured sections first. That way I can kind of bounce the more naturalistic elements off of those. And it'll end up looking a little bit like this kind of stuff, kind of spread out in through here, so that it kind of seals off this section. And plus, trees and shrubs and rocks are a real quick way to get a bunch of detail and fill in a lot of this space without having to really worry about so much. And it's just a good thing. If you don't know what you want to make and you may have a slightly ugly spot, put a bush in there and give it a nice little home, and there you have it. You will be happy for it. Here is our guardrail. The guardrail looks so cool. I just like the looks of this as you look down the road itself. I need to continue the painted lines eventually, but it does look like a pretty accurate guardrail all the way down. We'll have to make a bend here into the lower section that will be the entrance for the go-kart track eventually. We'll also have to keep expanding. I think I need more handicap parking spots. Like, we have a lot here during the live stream this weekend. This is what we were working on last Sunday, if I can get my days right. You know, you guys wanted some handicap parking. We made a pretty cool little handicap guy here using some of the more flat pieces in the game. And we made a lot of car variants. And the car variants are uploaded to the workshop. You can see them here. I'm going to be making more additional colors over time. But we have a full hatchback here. We got a beaverwood variant. Here are the wheels. We got some spokes and some rim action with the Reese's cup for the actual tire, so that we have some tread on there as well. The headlights are actually kind of nestled in there, and we can turn these on. And they also have taillights and a back tire. This is more of our two-door kind of coupe, you could say. And it has little pop-up lights because those are just really cool looking to have in general. And if you guys want any specific vehicles kind of made, maybe a Jeep, a van, buses, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what your favorite vehicle is, and I'll see about making it for our parking lot, or maybe some pretty cool Easter eggs that I have planned eventually. We got the lighting in a lot of these areas. A lot of the ceiling lights are in. I still want to redo the numbering system. I added the kind of entrance and exit light here. Made a car kind of partly down the spiral. You can see it actually fits rather nicely. I want to add a lighting system so that people won't go up while a car is coming down. It's kind of like a stoplight system, and that way it can control traffic as they approach this a little small of a helix. It would have been better if it was slightly bigger so we can have a 2-lane, but oh well. Here's the modern kind of addition on top. I do like the way it kind of counter spirals to the road itself. Starting to add car parking along here just so we can fill in some of the detail, but I'm doing it lightly just so there is room to add different car variants to keep the variety up. We got the staircase going all the way down from the top floor all the way down to here, the first floor. This is where you can get on a bus station, which we'll be building next episode. I want to get this large bus station first and maybe start thinking about the other ones Once we build the first one, I think the theme will be kind of established at that point. We also, yeah, since there's all these lights, let's just go ahead and take a look at it at nighttime. See what you guys think of that. There we go. I think that's going to look really cool eventually with the park all lit up. And then you're going to have this parking grid section off in the distance that's just kind of lit up in its own right. As I said, the ground is really shiny and not super good at showing how bright it is. But, you know, everything is visible. There's plenty of visibility going through here. This car has its headlights on now. This one as well coming out of the garage. You can somewhat see the light reflecting. This one coming up the parking garage has its headlights on. And even the car going down the spiral has its lights on in there. So that's just fun little things for me to keep the build interesting, you know. These little storytelling elements that I can hide in these nooks and crannies. And that's why I'm also building this parking lot, because it's just something to sell the fact that we're going to have a theme park here eventually. So that's it for today's episode of Planet Coaster. Boy, did I ramble on for a little while here at the end, but I hope you enjoyed that. Go ahead and subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more creative goodness such as this. Go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see next, and I will see you all in the next episode.